Welcome to Discuss on Global Television. My name is Priscilla Obasi, and today we're having a conversation to commemorate or just to extend the celebration that went on yesterday. It was World Teachers Day celebrated, and it's a day actually set aside to honor those who shape minds, who mold character, and who build nations quietly from the classroom. But beyond the celebration, there's a deeper conversation we must have. What does it truly mean to be a teacher in today's Nigeria? As the world evolves, so must education evolve. Yes, and today on Discourse, we will be talking about the topic, Redefining Education, the role of teachers for nation building. And joining me is a passionate educator and a consultant. When I tell you she's passionate, believe me. She has worked with children, and her work continues to inspire teachers and reform education at different levels. You will get to meet my guest just after this break. Please stay with us. Alright, joining me is a passionate educator and a consultant on the show today on Discourse. She has worked with countless children, like I said, and her work continues to inspire teachers and reform education on different levels. With me in the studio virtually is Victoria Ike. She's an educator and an education consultant. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to the program, ma'am.
Thank you for having me, Prisca.
All right, so let's dive straight into the conversation for today. So yesterday was World Teachers Day, right? It was a moment to celebrate teachers. For you, I'd ask you, how did you personally feel about yesterday's teachers celebration? Did it feel like a genuine appreciation or more like a yearly ritual?
Okay, so thank you for that question. By the way, I'm very happy to be here. Very important question. For yesterday, I really felt a genuine appreciation, not a ritual. It can never get too much how we appreciate teachers that continue to put their hearts out to raise leaders. And something particularly that stood out for me in my reflections is the fact that there are teachers that continue to go all out and they really do this work with their whole heart, because I can't even lie to you that in the system we have a lot of teachers that are just there. Some just stumbled on the job, some are just passing time, and it's not whether you stumbled on the job or just passing time that is the problem. It is that for the time that some teachers are in this business or in this business of raising leaders, that they are also careless about how they carry about their job. But in the midst of all the mess, there are teachers who hold the fort. There are teachers who go beyond the curriculum. They go beyond and above for their children and for the students that they nurture, and that for me is the biggest highlight in my reflection yesterday. So yes, I was bursting in appreciation for such teachers, the ones that raised me and the ones that I see all around me, the ones that work with us at Vicademy Hub, and it's genuine appreciation for me.
Okay, good to hear that. So many teachers were celebrated online, but in reality, their welfare remains a struggle. Now there has been this a thing with the education system in this life, in our country particularly, and I'm sure you know that a lot of teachers are not happy with their pay. Do you think Nigeria truly values teacher beyond, all of these yearly celebrations? Do we really value our teachers? Is it getting better for our teachers in this part of the world?
So no, actually, sadly so. It's really sad that a very core key part of the nation, the country is not valued. It's really sad to see how teachers struggle to make ends meet. I mean, people that hold this much importance in our nation building are, in fact, to say the least, some teachers are beggarly. Teachers are struggling. I can tell you for a fact, teachers are struggling. And what we even see in cities and in big schools is just the least of it. Teachers in rural environments, teachers are going through a lot and earning peanuts, while doing this robust job. So I would say that this long-standing problem is undoubtedly, calls for an undoubted need to be addressed. Teachers who do this very deep work of raising our tomorrow's leaders are being continuously overlooked when it comes to salaries, when it comes to welfare for teachers. It is so sad, but I also think that we are at the brink of the breaking of a new day, because with globalization of education and a lot of teachers now speaking up and a lot of teachers now rising to the occasion, a lot of teachers also rising up from that place of being local champions to even global leaders. And when I say global leaders, I don't mean that the teachers in rural environments are leaving to go to the global stages. While that is part of it, what I actually mean is that teachers in nameless communities actually rising up to say, okay, I may be teaching these local children, but I have to up my game. I need to improve my skills. I need to bring in the global world into my local classroom. Such kinds of teachers are rising in their tens and hundreds, and that's a good indication, an amazing indication to say that we are stepping into a new era for teachers. And for me, it's a consolation, because while it looks all rotten and all, it's just devastation right now, I think that there is hope. And this breaking forth of teachers might not necessarily come from the government, because when you look at the side of the government, it's a really long way to go. There's a whole lot to be fixed, right? What I'm looking at is something that would even come from independent organizations and teachers just rising to the occasions and redefining the whole sector. And it's happening really fast. And this is also to use the opportunity to say that government needs to do better when it comes to teacher reimbursement, payments and all that. Government definitely needs to do better. But I'm saying that I'm very hopeful, because teachers are rising, teachers are speaking, teachers are doing better, and that's a good indication that we're about to enter that breakthrough.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. Let's take it a bit personal for you now. I have seen your enthusiasm, I've seen your passion in education. How did you come to this point? What's the journey for you like?
Okay, so I'm one of the teachers that just had to do this. First of all, I've always loved to teach younger ones. So when I was in secondary school, I did a bit of that here and there. I would always enjoy to speak to my classmates about subjects that I knew better. But when I went to the university, I was broke for the most part, and my dad was very, very, I wouldn't say, he did his best, I mean, but the money was never enough for me. So in an attempt to always multiply my money, I did different kinds of business, and one of such that I decided to do was tutoring. Tutoring because one of my neighbor's child will always come to me to do her assignment. Every time I did her assignment, she would get a better score, the parents were happy, and all of that. So the parents spoke to me and said, can you just take her lesson and let's just see, since you are helping her with her homework and she's happy and stuff like that. So I started taking her mathematics, and she was doing better, she was improving and everything. And then I said, this can be a business. So as for a business mind that I had in university at that time, and I said this can be a business. So I printed flyers, designed and printed flyers, and gave to neighbors around. I'm teaching math and English and stuff like that. So I started to take students, and just that journey of taking students was really, it was so good for me. It was doing something to me. It was getting me closer to reading and making me always looking forward to read. And the feeling of seeing students that I taught improve the next term and their results always getting better was, to me, the greatest motivation. So still, I didn't think that there was something there called passion or anything. I just felt like, it feels good. Plus, they're giving me money for lessons, and it's helping me take care of one or two. Until I graduated, and I was a bit stranded because a business I had invested into with my savings crashed poultry, and my chickens died. So I was just thinking of what to do, and I decided, let me apply to teach. The way it is now for most Nigerians, that's like the closest thing. And then I applied, got into the job. I don't want to go details into how I got the job, but I got into the job and I started working, and I was doing my best. I would always do my best wherever I find myself. So I was doing my best. It was so good. I was assistant teacher in nursery 3. I was so angry about the class they gave me because I wanted secondary school. I'm more comfortable relating with teenagers. So nursery 3 assistant teacher, how assistant teacher, the kind of work assistant teachers. So at that time I felt like this wouldn't challenge me. It's not intellectual, it's not this, that. But then, long story cut short, that decision to teach has got to be one of the best decisions of my life, because months into that role, and we had a switch of curriculum from Nigerian to British, and there was this woman that came, and the trainings, the exposure, the mindset shift, and I started to see teaching as something well beyond all of these things. Just teaching math and English, it became so real to me, and I picked it up as a passion. From there, I got to Abuja, taught in one of the biggest schools in Abuja. From there, I went 2 years to volunteer with Teach for Nigeria and taught in a very rural environment. So all of these experiences put together gave me a very robust perspective about the education system, because I had taught in a middle income school, then a very high income school, and then a very low income and poorly served school. And all of this has fueled my passion and also given me a robust view of how the education system in Nigeria really is. So that's my journey in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Well, all I know of graduates that will look down on the teaching job, we see you, taking it, facing it squarely and picking up a career from it. That's actually an interesting thing. And now, while you were saying all of that, I picked up something from what you said. You said you had a school that had to switch from the Nigerian curriculum to the British curriculum. Can you just tell us the difference, and why would that happen? Why would the school switch from Nigerian curriculum to the British curriculum? Is it that it had more advantage, or it has more advantage than the Nigerian curriculum? Where is it actually applicable?
So I wouldn't say, I'm not on the side of the management. I was not on the side of the management at the time the decision was made. So I wouldn't really say I know why they decided to do that. But I would tell you the difference, actually. when we adopted the curriculum, we didn't switch completely. Of course, we just did like a blend. The way most schools do now. So the Nigerian curriculum is good. Kudos to whoever puts heart and brain into it. But then at the time, before this new curriculum, that curriculum was very rigid, and compared to what we now learned about the British curriculum seemed to be more exploratory and made learning very practical. And the way that we deliver lessons is more authentic than just rote learning and memorization, which is a key characteristic of the Nigerian curriculum at the time. So this time, children are interacting a lot, using their physical hands, engaging their senses, engaging critical thinking, and even our assessment models, everything changed, because right now you're not just, filling up the child with knowledge. You are involving the child in discovering what is already existent in their environment. So they are 100% involved in their learning process, and I think that changed everything. It changed their learning outcomes and academic outcomes, obviously, because I was then given a class to teach. I told you that I was in nursery 3 at the time. So I was then given it, after the switch, I was then given a class to teach primary 1. Now, in primary 1, more than 80% of my children could not read, could not even identify sounds, because that was when also we introduced to the sound methodology of teaching reading and stuff like that. They could not do a lot of things. Do you understand? So that importation of the new curriculum really changed a lot, even for the children. It increased excitement to learning. It hastened their process of assimilating and even getting to read and understand other concepts in science and other subjects. You know what I mean? So I think that there was a vast, the difference between the British curriculum and the Nigerian curriculum was very vast. I would also not be fair to mention this. Actually, I also noticed that the rigor that is in the Nigerian curriculum was missing, because there's a form of rigor. A lot, you know what I mean? A lot to cover, but no depth. Now that rigor is also absent in the British curriculum, which is where we're able to balance it. Do you understand? So
I would like you to give more details on that, the rigor, balancing the graduate curriculum with the British curriculum.
So what I mean really is, for example, in the math curriculum for primary school, what you would be covering. How do I say this now? Okay, when it comes to breath, Nigerian curriculum had breath, right? It's a disadvantage, but it's also an advantage, because it's evident in some of our students that then travel out, they have breath, they have vast knowledge of subject matter, but no depth. So the no depth is that they do not understand the application of what they are learning. So a lot of us graduate from school knowing so much, but actually knowing nothing deeply. So that's why we don't understand how to convert what we have known to practical use in practical life. You see what I mean? So in math, for example, primary 1, you can see that the child has so much, plenty topic, has to learn 1 to 1 million, stuff like that. But in the British curriculum, it might not be that. For example, the British curriculum, I'll give you a practical example. If you have the multiplication table 4, for example, it will teach the child not just 4 times 1, 4, 4 times 2, 8, 4 times 3, not just that, but it will also teach the child to see that they can even recite 4 times 11, 44, 4 times 10, 40, 4 times 9, 36, you know what I mean? So they can take it backwards, forward, and they can mix it up. Then they can do 2 times 4, 8, 4 times 2, 8, they can mix it up in any way that they get the concept of those numbers. But in the Nigerian curriculum, you see children saying 4 times 100, 4 times 100, they can do multiplication number up to 100. When you say stop and you ask them 4 times 2 is what, they can't tell you. They can't tell you in the blink of an eye. Do you see that? So there is breadth learning so much but not knowing anything deeply. So what we were able to do is to pick the most important things in the Nigerian curriculum that we feel like are competencies that a child has to gather, especially when it comes to national exams like common entrance and secondary school exams and stuff like that. So we pick those elements and use the British methodology to also teach it. Do you see? So that way the children have breadth to an extent, but then they also have depth of learning.
So I'm interested in how that is possible because, like you have just mentioned, the Nigerian curriculum is wide, is broad. How is it possible to cover the broadness of all of those and include the depth, teaching the depth of it? Because sometimes when you want to cover the depth of it, it takes so much time. Yeah, it takes all the time. So is it at the end of the session or the term, you just focus on just maybe instead of taking 16 subjects from the term, you end up taking 5, and then that for you is an accomplishment in that space. Is that what it amounts to at the end of the day?
Okay, so for us, what we did is we actually the subjects we named our subjects according to the British curriculum. For example, we're doing geography, we're doing French, we're doing for the early years they were also doing all the British subjects. You know what I mean? So but what it looks like is that we combine and merge topics.
Okay.
Do you understand? Okay. So because if you want to teach it in the Nigerian way, in some weeks in the Nigerian scheme of work, you would have you know how it is now. I'm sure you've interacted with the curriculum.
Of course.
It's just crazy. Sometimes the most important topics in fact are given lesser number of hours on the scheme, on the calendar. So it doesn't just make sense. So what we do is to combine subject, then we take the most intense ones and put them forward, deal with those ones, give them the lengthier times. Then there are topics that you can merge together and put them in the later part of the term, and you will still be able to cover. Now the thing is that we shrink that Nigerian curriculum into the British curriculum. It's not that we cover every single thing. We can't do that. You can't achieve that level of breadth and depth at the same time. The children won't leave school. Right? That's what you're trying to say. So what we do is we shrink the most important or the missing parts of those into the British curriculum. It's a lot of work, I know, but we have to do that for the students. So once we were able to plan that in each of our lessons, it was easier to deliver, and at the end of the day, our children could pass their common entrance and whatever national exams they were asked.
This is beautiful. Was this done in a private school? Because I know most schools or most Nigerians, let's say Nigerian students, are not privileged to this kind of methods. Of course, this is unique. It's unique, and it actually breaks great leaders. What about for those? We've heard students come up with the phrase "school has come," and basically it's because of the fact that just like you have said, we are not thorough with what we teach. We don't have the depth. So you come out from school, you graduate, and you're not able to apply whatever it is that you were studying for 4 to 5 years in the university. Now, what do you think is the solution to all of that? For students that come out to say school has come, what do they do after coming out from university or even writing a work and you're not able to apply whatever it is? You're not able to solve real life problems. What would you say to such set of people?
So, first of all, you and I know that school is definitely not a scam, right? School is not a scam, but it is sad that a lot of children, and some of the things that champion this kind of mentality with our young people is what society promotes. What is most appreciated in society is no more academic rigor, is no more, there's a big gap what we're learning in school and what is attainable in real life. And we have to close that gap because, Martin Luther would say that education is the only tool that we can use to change the world, and that's the truth. Education means enlightenment, understanding how things work and why they work the way they do. So school gives us that eventually, but we need a lot of shift has to happen. There has to be a connect between what we're learning and teaching our students in school with what is attainable in the real world. And oh my God, I didn't want to even talk about this curriculum, this new curriculum, but I have to mention it. Just looking at that curriculum, you would see that whoever put that together, or the team that put that together, they are, I mean, they are working towards the right direction. I mean, there's some brain work there, trying to piece together what is attainable in the classroom with what the world is becoming, and that makes sense. You know, introducing vocational skills at an early stage in education, introducing digital skills, very key, and all of that. That is good. But that is very far. It is so far from the reality on ground. It is too far. So it makes me think that do we create policies and curriculum?
When you talk about reality, is it the reality in our environment or the reality?
Not the reality in the environment. The reality in our schools.
In our schools.
Yes, because our school environment are not even ready for that. And let me tell you, there are schools that are ready for that.
Yeah.
There are schools in Abuja, in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in big cities in Nigeria that are ready for that. They have computers, they have vocational labs, they can learn anything, they can teach children anything, and this will favor them. But what the government has succeeded in doing is to widen the gap of education inequity in Nigeria. What you have done is that you have raised the standard so high for students who are very privileged, and that standard is not too high. It's actually the correct standard, right?
Yeah.
But then you have caused a dip in the standard for children who are within middle to low income, I mean,
class.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So because how many schools have computers? How many schools have? I was in a school in Ogun State last month when I went to Lagos. I went to one of my friend's school. It's a government school, and I mean very big government school. And the teacher was confused. My friend was actually confused because he was trying to write lesson plan, lesson notes, and he was searching the internet, on the new subjects. He was searching the internet, and because the textbooks available don't have those new subjects, the internet does not, people have not created content and lesson notes for the new subject, so, and they have imposed it on them. They have asked them to start writing based on that, to start writing lesson notes based. So the teacher is confused, no resources, no practical anything, just unprepared, and they're dumping it on us to implement in the classrooms.
Yeah.
So these people writing these things in their office, do they just sit in the offices and think that this is a nice idea, pick it up from another country and dump it on teachers? What is happening? Do you understand?
I totally get
do
you.
Research in same countries and communities. What happens is they take a period of time. If it's going to be a period of 6 months, for example, 1 year, they involve themselves in deep research. They go to actual classrooms. They factor in classrooms at different levels. Classrooms in, high income earning communities and underserved communities. They sample those classrooms, then they go into those then they begin to release the curriculum gradually, and they are experimenting. Is it working? They are getting feedback. They put in a system that continues to feed them with data on whether this thing is working or not in real time. So, but how is it that in our country you just sit in your office and just think that, okay, teachers are saying curriculum is outdated, let's just give them curriculum that is, up to date and all of that, and you just bombard it. No systems, no plan, no structure. What you have succeeded in doing is to say to the Nigerian child that is not privileged that there is no single hope for them in their own country.
Absolutely.
That's what the curriculum is doing. Because how does that child who does not know how to read at 10, and trust me, this is the reality of more than 80% of children in these communities, who does not know how to read at 10? You are saying robotics. You are saying what are you saying? It doesn't have the basic literacy skills. So it's very heartbreaking because I took my time to go through the curriculum. It's good. It makes sense. This is
theoretically, right? We're not ready yet. Okay, let's just go on a quick break. We'll return to the conversation. Please stay with us.
Okay. Thank you.
Alright, I hope you didn't go far. It has been an interesting conversation here in the studio. We're still with our guest, Victoria Ike, an educator and an education consultant. Yes, she's doing justice to the conversation this today. And Vicky, are you there? Please say hello to us.
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Okay, so still on the curriculum upgrade, right now we're in that conversation, the recent curriculum reform or the education reform in the education sector. You were speaking, before we went on the break, you're talking about the disparity, it brings this big divide between the rich and right say the poor. Well, realistically, that is what it is. And Nigeria, people say that sometimes we want to embrace whatever it is the world is embracing. We want to just level up. Let me use that way. We want to be where the world is, where everyone is heading to, right? But then the way we go about it actually is what we do not really sit down to analyze. We don't really go behind go to the drawing board. And like you said, in other times of the world, if you want to talk about this kind of curriculum upgrade, there has to be a research for a period of time to see that it is applicable and how it will be applicable, how it will benefit every single Nigerian out there. But we have courses like coding, like robotics. But then again, you also mentioned that introducing. There are also courses like I think I saw something like communication courses, right? Public speaking, and all of that. I want to ask, if all of those things were put into the system, were also included into, were also considered in the curriculum upgrade, don't you think it balances whatever it is? Don't you think it is timely? Don't you think it would help, with the foundation of every other kind of course that was included in that curriculum?
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct to say that it would definitely help. It would provide a safe landing for every course because communication is important. Mm-hmm. Very important. Very, very important. No matter what you're teaching a child, mm-hmm. they must learn to communicate their value. Mm-hmm. They must learn the language of their listeners, and speak that language and be able to communicate their value, eloquently, gently, and with clarity.
A child that is able, sorry to cut you, a child that is able to clearly communicate should be able to read, should be able to spell, and should be able to code. I don't know if it makes any sense, but I think that is the foundation of it all. And some other person might argue that it was clearly considered with the balance in every other kind of, do I call it art? Yeah, the balance in every other kind of art. It was well distributed. We had sciences coming in, which would include the inclusion or the addition of tech courses like coding and robotics. And then we also had, I think I saw a bit of journalism there, right? And also the communication, the public speaking. So I think if someone comes from the standpoint that it actually balances things, what would you say to that?
No, I didn't get the question clearly. Balances
Yes,
things.
you mentioned before we went to that, but you mentioned that some students are unable to read even at say 10 years
Right.
old. They don't have the
Right.
basics of literacy, the reading and the writing, and then we have courses like robotics and coding, added to the curriculum. With the inclusion of subjects like public speaking and other, oracy courses or sorry subjects added to the curriculum, don't you think it balances it all? Don't you think it creates the balance for students, the good foundation for students to be able to learn all the kind of techie subjects and subjects that have been added to the curriculum?
Yeah, yes, but no as well, because when you talk about public speaking and subject areas that has to do with oracy, I think that it is an application of literacy. It is not literacy. Literacy, we have our curriculum on literacy is very wrong and very bad, and it's not working. Now, the reason I say it's not working, many of us learned to read, for example, by just repetition. Do you understand? Like, you see SCHOOL, you see it continuously all the time. So it somehow sticks that it's school. But we didn't learn the language
sound.
principle, the
Yes.
sound,
Yes.
yeah, which is the language principle that made it come about. So when we see a similar word, we still need some level of repetition and cramming to be able to figure it out. That's how most of us learned under the watch of the Nigerian curriculum.
Absolutely.
So critical thinking skills is deadened. So we have to always discover new words and finding it difficult. That's why you see that although Nigeria is an English-speaking country, we have a lot of problem passing the IELTS test. That's strange. That's strange. That's very improper. That's a mishap. It's not supposed to be, because we're an English-speaking country. We are native speakers of English. Most of us don't even understand our local language as much as we do English, right? But we are learning the wrong English. We're not learning principles around it. We're not learning. We're not building critical thinking around English. So we speak poorly, we speak badly, and all of that. So I'm saying that literacy is actually learning those principles around language. However, public speaking is an application of it, because somebody can be literacy covers, reading, speaking, listening, writing, right? And somebody can be good with those, but somebody can even speak very good English, but they are bad public speakers.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
they speak
absolutely.
very good English, they're able to put their sounds together, pronounce words and stuff, but they are bad public speakers. So public speaking is an application of literacy. So first I say that we need to revamp our literacy delivery. Do you understand? So first of all, we have a lot of English teachers are not even doing well, because the English teachers themselves have not worked on themselves to get the right principles around language. I mean, some, not all, of course.
I don't think the English teachers are teaching actually. You have teachers coming to teach English, people studying other subjects, coming to teach English. Most English teachers do not teach. They go out to do all the kind of course on careers. They move their careers from the whole education system to other aspects of other industries. So I don't think there are English teachers in the classroom. We don't have much of them there. So we have other teachers that studying other classes coming to teach English. When I was in school, I had a Hausa teacher. I know this school was a very good school. I don't want to mention the name. Very good school. But there was a time that our Hausa teacher had to substitute, had to stand in for the English teacher. Because some private schools are looking for, how to maximize profit, how to, get all the whole profit. And most times, they do not have. Maybe they have some qualified teachers, but not all teachers are qualified that even teach in those private schools. So when we're talking about that's also says why our English speaking is not so good in this part of the world, because we don't have proper teachers in the classroom, proper English teachers in the classroom.
We don't. You're so correct. We don't have proper English. I know a lot of English teachers that still struggle with the age factor. And when I say that, people think that I'm trying to belittle our local language and who we are as Nigerians, I say no to it. When you're learning language, there are things. I don't have any problem with accent. I don't have any problem with accent, but your accent must not tamper with the language, with the you know what I mean?
Yeah, with the education, with the knowledge you're trying to impart.
Because then you're transferring the wrong thing.
Yes.
For example, if you have the H factor and you're teaching a child ICE, for example, as ice, you see, it's going to affect how that child pronounces that word. Do you see that you are altering the language? So, for example, I also have Italian students that are learning English as second language, and they have this common way of they mistaking the b sound with the w sound.
Okay.
That's B and W. So, for example, things like brain, you can say win.
Oh.
Do you understand? So I always correct them to say, okay, no, this sound, you have to learn this sound, and I insist on it. But I always tell them, your accent is not bad. It's not a sin to have an accent, right?
Yeah.
If I speak as a Nigerian, no matter how I speak English and I speak with my real Nigerian accent, you will know that I'm a Nigerian. But I'm not trying to change. I'm not trying to change my accent, right? Though sometimes I can fake an accent, depending maybe to do some jobs or to do one or two things to communicate some things. I can learn an accent. I can change my accent. But my accent, there's nothing wrong with my accent if I can apply grammar principles, pronunciation principles, in English whenever I'm speaking English. Then there's nothing wrong with the accent. So I think that a lot of our teachers don't even have it right when it comes to teaching English. And it's okay not to have studied English, because some of us didn't, but you can learn it. You can take courses in it and make sure that what you're teaching is the correct thing. Oh my God, I've seen all sorts of English teachers, and it's so sad. So as children are picking up these same things, and we're recycling rubbish in the system. You see that when we start to talk about the problem in the education system, it's
on ending.
It's on ending. We're talking about this restructure, the teacher, oh my God, it's on ending. And one of my friends said something when I was telling him that, are we ready for this curriculum upgrade that the government is? And he said, we are more than ready. We're going to do it. We have teachers that are so one of the things I said is, do we even have teachers that know how to teach, for example, robotics? I'm not saying that people who are into
we need professional educators.
Being able, doing something as a career different from
teaching
to teach it.
Exactly. I said so too.
That means our education, our college of education, do we have these specializations
in the education department?
Training.
Yes.
Teachers who are training to be robotics, do we even have those? And he said, no, we have more than enough hands and qualified teachers. I run an edtech and I can tell you for a fact that even recruiting teachers is very difficult. It is. And is that not an irony? Because there are teachers all around the place, right?
Yes.
It's difficult to recruit teachers who meet the standard that you want to continue to give out. It's so difficult. Whether in math, in English, it's difficult. Do you see that? So the human resources is another conversation on its own, and we're just not even
those days when we're in school, those students that are usually in the education department, they're usually looked down. I don't know, what did you study in school?
Environmental science.
Okay, you studied environmental science. So those, there's this way we look at education is like in school then.
Yes.
You look at them as if you're wasting your time,
But then that's how they also look at themselves. Most of them are sad.
So, yes.
Some of them are, but most of them are also sad. So the way we see them sad, we just feel like, these people, they just push them there.
And most times, it's actually a dumping ground for students. When you apply to a particular course, you don't get this dump into the education department. So I don't think we project education in this country as, even our universities, we don't. Why do you make education a dumping ground? You need a level of skill, you need a level of professionalism to be able to teach. It is not something small. Just like you were saying now, it's difficult to recruit teachers that meet the standard. So I think the government needs to hide this thing a bit, because seems like it is, a job for when you've tried everything possible and nothing is working, you just go into the teaching profession, and that is the brand. Yeah, yes, exactly, and that's the branding we've given to the teaching job. And honestly, I think it comes from the top. I really think so, because we need to, basically what I'm saying is that we need to project the teaching profession as something noble, as something professional. Else you keep getting this kind of things in addition, because I feel like it starts from there. If we have a good education system, we'll have better other sectors performing better, because those people at other sectors, at other levels, come out of the educational system. They go to schools, they go to primary, they go to secondary. At the end of the day, they function in those sectors. You get. So we need to project the educational system as the foundation of every kind of, every other kind of department, every other kind of sector. Else, we will not get anywhere in this country. I really feel so. But let me just. Okay, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I wanted to say that. You can't just say you're passing time and then you want to be a doctor.
Exactly.
That you want to go to the hospital and say, oh, I have passion for treating people, so I'm passing time. I'm looking for.
I was for engineering job. Yeah, engineering. Exactly. So that is.
I do that as a lawyer.
Exactly. So.
As an engineer.
But we teach to pass time. It's really funny. But when we talk about refining education, in your opinion, what exactly needs to change? Are we talking about just the curriculum? Are we talking about the character of teaching itself? What exactly are we focused on when we talk about refining the educational system?
Okay, so first of all, it's a mindset shift, and this comes at the fore of my heart because of also the training. I told you that the first school I taught officially, there was a change in curriculum, and it was Dr. Rank. She's in the UK. She was the one that came to teach us everything that has to do with the curriculum and all of that. The first thing she taught us was, I remember vividly, she just displayed her slide, and what we saw on the screen was paradigm shift. Paradigm. I can never forget because after leaving that place, I felt like I had a paradigm shift, shift in my mindset. Like everything just changed, right? And I think that is one of the first things that we even need. It is a paradigm shift. Maybe in our colleges, maybe when you're talking to people about education, because the thing again is that in this college of education, you see that the teachers that are teaching these subjects, they are also tired, they're frustrated, they are underpaid, they are stressed, they don't even give the profession a good outlook. Do you see that? So because they're not well compensated, the way that they teach what they are teaching, teachers who will teach other children, is even a turn off. Because I've done my own postgraduate diploma in education, professional diploma in education. I've done all my certifications and all of that. So I can tell you that these teachers are not as excited about the profession as they should be. And when you come to do certificate courses in education like that, one of the things you never get is that paradigm shift. In fact, you just keep getting angry with the system.
Yeah, that's because those lecturers are not even well paid.
They are not. They are sad.
Yes.
They've suffered. They are not treated well. In fact, do you know that many teachers across many states in Nigeria, the government is even owing them?
Absolutely.
I'm not talking about just salaries.
Yes.
Their welfare packages.
Yes.
This thing that the government is supposed to have paid them. Or there's this one they do that I knew of like a contribution they do, and it is to a government account or something like that. I don't know. I can't really place it, but they have a lot of grudge against the government. Many of them are just there because they've spent too long there and they can't go back because of their pension, something they are hoping will happen in the future and all of that. So they are sad. So even the teachers that teach teachers have to be, I mean, the government has to do something about those people. Because Because if teachers that teach other teachers are sad, they can never communicate passion and the right ideology to the teachers that they are raising. It cannot happen. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot give joy if you don't have joy. You just can't help it. Right? So that has to be done. Another thing that I think that needs to be done is infrastructure is very important. But even before the infrastructure, teacher training. I just spoke about paradigm shift.
Yes.
But teacher training. Now, I'll tell you again about this, my friend's school that I went to in Ogun State. It's a government school. Now, the government, the Federal Ministry of, I don't know what federal ministry, but it's a federal ministry. They were doing projects across government schools, I think in the state, or I don't know if it's across Nigeria. But that school is one of the schools that they did the project in. You know what they did? They built an ICT center. So that ICT center is very nice, as in they put computers, they put chairs and tables, nice chairs and tables. I mean, everything is well spaced out, and then there are air conditioners, like how many ACs? Maybe 8 or 10 ACs in that. It's not a very big building, but it's very comfy and all of that. Nice, right?
Yeah.
And then they did toilets. When I entered the toilet to use the toilet, I saw that the toilet had water heater.
Wow. Interesting.
So I'm like, okay, so obviously
A government school.
Yes, it's a government school.
Oh.
So obviously money just entered their hands and they were implementing projects. Now I'll tell you what, in that community there is no lights.
Oh, wow.
In that community there is no light. Then they installed Starlink.
Okay.
Starlink internet has to be subscribed monthly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's no provision for that. They said that the school should take advantage of it. Principal that is ordinarily angry that she's not well paid. He said she should take over, paying for the Starlink and paying for the subscription and all of that. Never done. Now they installed solar, which is a good one, right?
Okay.
Now, but they did a very, very bad work, and then within months, the solar like blew off, and it was not working anymore. I think the community boys even stole some parts of the
That's like, what do we call that now?
So
what priorities? Now, in all of this now, I can boldly say that the teachers are still not paid well, and they were having all of these facilities.
That part, the children cannot even use the computer. Okay, because the children are so many. There are so many in that school. Like one class can be like 200. There are that many in that school. The children cannot even use the computer because teacher is in a hurry to cover their curriculum. Teacher has so much to cover. Is it their spare time? When teacher is going to sacrifice their own period to now take children to the computer, how many children are going to go into the ICT lab, and at what time? Who will teach them? That's another thing. Who is going to teach them? What will the person teach them?
I can imagine. These are the things, these are the conversations we need to have.
Real issues. I kept laughing. I said, what does the toilet need a water heater for?
Can you imagine?
It's just like the way we say it in Nigerian street, money miss road. What do we need a water as in a water heater in this toilet, the ICT toilet? What do you need the water heater for? And the children are supposed to come and bathe in school. It doesn't make sense. It means that again, no research. You need to come to the community to do a research. Okay, is there light in this community? Do you even have fence? Is there security? Do you understand? Is there security? Is there light? Okay, can we even do maybe connect light and do a transformer or something first? Or can we, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally get it.
Let's talk to the teachers. Let's have a questionnaire. What do you think we need urgently? We're thinking of ICT center. What do you think? How do you think it's going to work? The teachers will tell you exactly what will work.
It is well. Alas, that's all we can say. Well, we hope that We hope that all of this comes to an end. Really, we cannot stop talking about it. We will not stop talking until we see the change that we want to see. I think this is how far we can take it on the conversation today. It has been an interesting conversation with you, and I cannot thank you enough for being here, to lend your voice to this conversation, to the discussion for today. Like I said, we hope that change comes soon, but until then, we will not stop talking. Thank you so much, Vicky. We appreciate your time on Global Television. We appreciate your time on Discuss today. So we'll say bye for now, right? Yeah. Okay. So, guys, thank you for tuning in, for staying till this point. I'm sure you've learned one or two from the conversation. Like I said, we'll keep lending our voice until we come your way again and discuss. Don't stop getting informed. Don't stop doing your own part as am I doing, right? So it's bye for now.